When I saw the scar on her chest, I didn't just recognize it. I remembered making it with my own sword 205 years ago. My name is Ethan Blackwood. I'm 48 years old. I'm the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar real estate development firm, a company with assets totaling $340 million. I live in a $20 million penthouse in the financial district. Drive an Aston Martin DB11 valued at $265,000. I wear $10,000 bespoke suits and a $120,000 Audemars Piguet Royal Oak on my wrist. But none of it prepared me for what happened on October 14th, 2025, 6 years ago. I divorced Ashley, a loveless marriage, convenient, strategic. She walked away with $47 million in the settlement. I kept the company. And something else, something I didn't expect. Something that has haunted me for the last 3 years. Nightmares, always the same scene. A woman dying in my arms, blood pouring from a wound in her chest, rain falling all around us, screams, gunfire, soldiers in old uniforms, and me, dressed in a blue military uniform with gold buttons, holding a bloody sword. She looks at me with dying eyes and whispers in Old Spanish, "In another life, promise me you'll find me." And I answer, with tears mixing with the rain, "I swear on my soul I will find you in this life or 1,000 more." Then she dies, and I wake up every night for 3 years, the same nightmare, with details so vivid that I can feel the weight of the sword in my hand, the smell of gunpowder and blood, the touch of her cold skin. I've consulted 5 psychiatrists. They all diagnosed post-traumatic stress from the divorce, prescribed anti-anxiety medication, antidepressants, cognitive behavioral therapy. Nothing worked. The dreams continued, night after night, year after year, until I met Sarah Miller. Sarah started working in my office on October 7th, 2025, one of the 3 cleaning staff for the corporate building. 41 years old, a single mother of 2. She lived in an $800 a month studio apartment in the South District. She worked 3 jobs, cleaning in my building from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., laundry at a hotel from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m., elderly care from 8 p.m. to 11 p.m., 6 days a week, Sundays only 2 shifts. I saw her for the first time on Monday, October 7th, cleaning the 47th floor, my executive floor. She was wearing a blue cleaning uniform, black hair pulled back in a ponytail, no makeup, hands rough from so much work. I didn't think anything special, just another employee. But something in my chest tightened when our eyes met for half a second. She immediately looked down. Deference, respect, the social distance between a multi-millionaire CEO and a cleaning lady. I kept walking toward my office, but my heart was beating strangely fast. That night, I had the nightmare again. But this time, when the dying woman lifted her face, she had Sarah Miller's eyes. 1 week later, Tuesday, October 14th, 7:23 a.m. I was arriving early as always, black coffee in hand. Checking emails on my iPhone as I walked toward my office on the 47th floor, Sarah was cleaning the boardroom area, her back to me, standing on a small stepladder, cleaning the floor-to-ceiling windows. I didn't see her until it was too late. I turned sharply to the left. My shoulder bumped the ladder. "Watch out!" I yelled, but she was already falling. Everything happened in slow motion. Sarah lost her balance. The ladder wobbled. She screamed, extended her hands, searching for support, grabbed the curtain. The fabric tore. She fell. I dropped the coffee, reached out my arms, caught her just before she hit the floor. The impact forced me back 3 steps, but I held her. She lay in my arms, looking at me with wide eyes. Her breath was ragged. Her heart was beating so hard I could feel it against my chest. And then I saw it. Her blouse had ripped during the fall, the top button torn off, the fabric open, revealing her left breast. And there it was, a scar 12 centimeters long, diagonal 47 degrees of inclination, exactly 3 centimeters above her left nipple. white, ancient, as if it had been there for decades. The exact same pattern that I saw every night in my nightmares, the same wound my sword had made in the dying woman's chest. My vision blurred. Suddenly, I wasn't in my office on the 47th floor anymore. I was in a plaza, torrential rain, night, torches illuminating Spanish colonial buildings, screams, musket fire, gunpowder smoke. I was wearing a blue military uniform with gold buttons, white pants, black leather boots up to the knee, sword in my right hand, blood dripping from the blade. 3 soldiers in red Spanish uniforms lay dead at my feet, and in front of me, collapsing, a young woman, 22 years old maybe, white cotton dress soaked with blood and rain, black hair plastered to her face, a diagonal wound on her left breast, bleeding profusely. My sword was still dripping her blood. "No, no, no, Catherine," I screamed, falling to my knees. I held her just like I was holding Sarah now, in my arms, blood gushing between my fingers as I desperately tried to press the wound. I'm sorry, forgive me. I just wanted to save you," I sobbed. She raised her trembling hand and touched my face, leaving a trail of blood on my cheek. "Daniel," she whispered weakly. "Don't cry. It wasn't your fault." "Hold on, please, hold on, I'll get help," I yelled, but I knew it was useless. Too much blood, too fast. She smiled, a sad smile, beautiful, full of love, even as she died. "In another life," she coughed blood. "Promise me, you'll find me." Tears streamed from my eyes, mixing with the rain. "I swear on my soul, I will find you. In this life, or 1,000 more." She closed her eyes. Her hand fell from my face. She stopped breathing, and I screamed. A heart-wrenching scream that shook the entire plaza. "Catherine!" "Mr. Blackwood! Mr. Blackwood!" Sarah's voice brought me back. I was on the floor, on my knees, still holding her, trembling violently. Tears streamed down my cheeks. "Sir, are you okay? What happened?" she asked, scared. I stared at her. Her face, her eyes, the same eyes. They were the same damn eyes. My mouth opened. Words came out before I could stop them. A hoarse whisper, broken, filled with 205 years of pain. "Catherine!" Sarah's eyes widened enormously. Her face paled. What did you say?" she asked in a trembling voice. "Catherine," I repeated, my voice cracking. She pulled away from me sharply. She collapsed, sitting heavily on the floor, looking at me like she'd seen a ghost. "How do you know that name?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "What?" I asked, confused. "That name, Catherine. How do you know it?" Her voice rose, laced with panic, terror, and a flicker of recognition. I don't know. I stammered, my mind racing. She scrambled to her feet, moving back several steps. Her hands trembled as she tried to close her torn blouse, a desperate attempt to regain control. "That's the name I hear in my nightmares," she said, her voice breaking. "Ever since I can remember, a man shouting that name, Catherine, over and over, while I die in his arms." The world seemed to stop. "What?" I managed to whisper, the word catching in my throat. "I have nightmares," she continued, tears now streaming down her cheeks, glistening in the dim light. "Always the same one. I'm dying. Rain. Blood. A man in a blue military uniform holding a sword. And he screams, 'Catherine,' as I die." My heart stopped. I literally felt my heart stop for a long, agonizing 3 seconds. "Since when?" My voice was barely audible, a strained whisper. "Since when have you had these nightmares?" "Forever," she whispered back, her eyes wide with a fear that mirrored my own. "Since I was 4 years old. Every night, the same nightmare. I always die on the same day." "What day?" I asked, even though a cold dread already whispered the answer in my mind. "October 14th. The air rushed from my lungs, leaving me gasping. Today was October 14th. We remained silent for what felt like an eternity, maybe 30 seconds, just staring at each other, two strangers, somehow, impossibly, sharing the same nightmare. Finally, my rational mind clawed its way back to the surface. "The scar," I said, my voice a little steadier now. "On your chest." She instinctively covered her chest with both hands, her eyes darting down as if seeing the mark for the first time. "What about it?" "I can describe it," I said, rising from the floor, my gaze fixed on her. "Without having seen it before today." "You just saw it?" "During the accident," she objected, her voice laced with suspicion. "I saw it for half a second while you were falling," I replied. "But I can give you exact details. Details only you and your doctor all would know." She hesitated, fear and curiosity warring on her face. "Okay," she said finally, the word barely a breath. "Describe it." I closed my eyes. The image was seared into my mind. I'd seen it 1,000 times in 3 years of nightmares. 5 inches long, I began, my voice low and steady. "Starts 3 inches below your left collarbone. Diagonal, descending from left to right. An angle of roughly 47 degrees. Ends just over an inch above your left nipple." Sarah gasped, a sharp, involuntary sound. "The upper edge of the scar is thicker than the lower," I continued, my eyes still closed, lost in the memory. "About 2 millimeters versus 1 millimeter, indicating the blade that caused it entered at an angle from above." "Oh my God," she whispered, her voice trembling. "There's a small branching at the lower end," I pressed on, "like a fork of about 4 millimeters to the left. It happened when the blade was pulled out roughly, tearing additional tissue." "Stop, please stop." Her voice broke, a sob caught in her throat. I opened my eyes. She was crying, a hand clamped over her mouth. Her eyes were wide and haunted. "How?" She couldn't finish the question, the words lost in a wave of emotion. "And there's something else," I said softly, my voice barely above a whisper. "Something not even you would know, without advanced medical analysis." "What?" she breathed, her eyes locked on mine. "The wound was made with a Toledo steel sword, high quality, forged in Spain in the 19th century. The tissue damage pattern shows specific characteristics of that type of blade, slightly curved, single-edged, approximately 1.2 inches wide at the point of entry." Sarah sank into a nearby chair, completely pale, her body trembling. "The doctors told me it was a birth defect," she said, her voice broken. "Present from birth, but they could never explain the pattern. They said it looked like an old stab wound, but that was impossible, because I was born with it." "But when were you born?" I asked, though again, something deep inside me already knew the answer. "October 14th, she replied, her voice barely audible. "What year?" 1984. I did the math quickly, my mind reeling. October 14th, 1984, exactly 164 years after October 14th, 1820. "I was born on October 14th, she said, wiping away tears. "I always hated my birthday, because it's the day I die in my nightmares." My hands shaking, I pulled out my phone. I Googled Buenos Aires, October 14th, 1820 Battle Catherine Ruiz. The results appeared immediately. Digitalized historical files from the General Archive of the Argentine Nation. Document dated October 17th, 1820, Register of Deaths for the City of Buenos Aires. And there it was. Catherine Maria Ruiz, single woman, 22 years old. Merchant, died October 14th, 1820. Cause of death, stab wound, during altercation in Plaza de Mayo. 4 months pregnant. My hands gestures were shaking so badly and I almost dropped the phone. "There's more," I whispered, continuing to read, my eyes scanning the screen. "Captain Daniel Ethan Blackwood, officer of the Patriot Army, 25 years old, executed October 17th, 1820, charged desertion during combat. Military court sentence indicates he abandoned his formation to attempt to rescue citizen Catherine Ruiz during an engagement with royalist forces. The woman died from a wound inflicted accidentally during the rescue. Execution by firing squad carried out at dawn on October 17th. I looked up from the phone, my heart pounding in my chest. Sarah was staring at me, tears streaming freely down her face, her expression a mixture of shock, grief, and dawning understanding. Daniel Ethan Blackwood, I repeated slowly, the name feeling strangely familiar on my tongue. My name is Ethan Blackwood. And I, she said, her voice choked with emotion, my middle name is Catherine, Sarah Catherine Miller. The silence that followed and was deafening. Two people, separated by 205 years, now standing in a modern corporate building, holding impossible evidence of a life we never lived, or that we did live. What do we do now? Sarah whispered finally, her voice trembling. I looked at the scar on her chest, then at the historical document on my phone, then into her eyes. Those damned eyes I'd seen die 1,000 times in my dreams. I need to know more, I said, my voice firm despite the turmoil raging within me. I need to know everything. She nodded slowly, her eyes fixed on mine. Me too. That night, we met in my office after everyone had left. 9 p.m. The building eerily empty, just Sarah and me, and 205 years of impossible questions hanging between us. She arrived, still in her cleaning uniform, tired from 3 jobs, dark circles under her eyes, but her eyes shone with something I hadn't seen before: curiosity, hope, fear. I brought this, she said, placing a worn notebook on my $45,000 mahogany desk. I've been keeping track of my nightmares since I was 12 years old. My mom told me writing them down would help them go away. Did it work? I asked. No, but I have 29 years of documented details. I opened the notebook, yellowed pages, a child's handwriting, evolving into a teenager's, and then an adult's, hundreds of entries, all describing the same nightmare. October 14th, 1995, age 11 years. The man in the blue uniform is weeping. He says he's sorry. He says he only wanted to save me. There are 3 dead men around us. Red uniforms, blood on the ground, mixed with rain. March 23rd, 1998, age 14. Today, I noticed new details. The man has a wound on his left arm, blood soaking his sleeve, but he doesn't care. He only cares about me dying. September 7th, 2003, age 19. The plaza has a fountain in the center, colonial buildings all around, torches lighting the windows. I hear cannons in the distance. It smells of gunpowder and death. I read page after page, each entry adding details, small pieces of an impossible puzzle. I keep a record too, I said, opening my laptop. Word files, 3 years, documenting every nightmare. I showed her my screen. January 2nd, 2023. The sword weighs exactly 2.6 pounds. Perfect balance. Blade 35 inches long. Black leather hilt with silver inlays. Engraved on the blade, Blackwood and Alvear, 1814. Sarah gasped. What? I asked. Wait. She searched frantically in her notebook. Here. June 18th, 2007. Age 23. Before I die, I see his sword fall to the ground. It has a name engraved on it. Blackwood and something else. I can't read the rest because my vision blurs. We looked at each other in silence. Matching details, I whispered. Different perspectives of the same scene. As if we were really there, she completed my thought. If you're watching this and believe in reincarnation, if you've ever had recurring nightmares that seem too real, if you believe that soulmates can reunite across centuries, leave a super thanks. Each contribution helps me investigate and share more real stories like this. because what we discovered next was even more impossible. Tell me everything you remember, I said, from the beginning. Sarah closed her eyes, took a deep breath. I'm in a plaza. It's night, raining hard. I'm wearing a simple white dress, cheap cotton. I'm barefoot. My feet are muddy. Why are you there? I asked unsoftly. I went to sell flowers, she continued, eyes still closed. It's my job. I sell flowers in the plaza every day. Roses, jasmines. I grow them myself. In a small garden behind my father's house. Your father? He's a merchant, fabrics. He's not rich, but not poor either. Lower middle class. I live with him and my mother in a small house near the harbor. The details were incredible, too specific to be just imagination. What happened that night? I asked. Soldiers arrived. Her voice trembled. Red uniforms, British soldiers, fighting against the American patriots. There was a battle. I was caught in the middle. And then 3 soldiers surrounded me. Tears began to roll down her cheeks without opening her eyes. They threw me to the ground. They tore my dress. They were going to... You don't have to continue, I said softly. And then he appeared. Her voice broke, but she continued. The man in the blue uniform. Daniel. He killed 2 soldiers with his sword. The 3rd fought him. I tried to get up, to stand, to run, but I slipped in the mud. Daniel turned towards you. I continued the story from my own perspective. The sword still moving from the last attack, trying to stop it, but the momentum was already there. The blade cut me. Sarah opened her eyes, tears running freely. I felt the cold metal entering my chest. It didn't hurt at first, just cold, then warmth, hot blood gushing out. I dropped the sword. My voice was barely a whisper. I fell to my knees. I held you. I pressed my hands against the wound, but the blood kept coming, too fast. You told me you were sorry, she sobbed, over and over. I'm sorry, forgive me. And you touched my face, I continued. You left blood on my cheek. You said it wasn't my fault. I loved you, Sarah whispered. In that life, I loved you so much, even though it was forbidden. We were secret lovers, I confirmed. For 2 years. Your father didn't know. My family would never approve. Because you were aristocracy, she said, and I was just a flower seller. Just like now, I said bitterly. Me, a multi-millionaire. You, a cleaning lady. The same damn story, repeating itself. We stayed silent for a minute, the weight of centuries pressing down on us. Then I remembered something. There's something else, I said slowly. In my dreams, Catherine had a birthmark. Sarah tensed. Where? She asked, with a cautious voice. Right shoulder, I responded. Star-shaped, 8 points, about 8 millimeters in diameter, dark brown. Sarah's face had lost all color. That's impossible, she whispered. Do you have that birthmark? I asked, although I already knew the answer. She didn't answer. Instead, she slowly lowered the right strap of her uniform. She moved the fabric down, and there it was, on her right shoulder, exactly where I had said, a birthmark in the shape of a perfect star. 8 symmetrical points, 8 millimeters in diameter, dark brown. Oh my God, I could barely speak. I've had it since I was born, Sarah said in a trembling voice. My grandmother said it was the mark of an angel, that it meant I had been blessed in a previous life. I pulled out my phone with trembling hands. Draw it, Sarah said suddenly. Draw the exact shape before you see it up close. If you really remember. I opened the Notes app. I used my finger to draw on the screen. 8 lines coming out of a common center, forming an 8-pointed star, some points slightly longer than others. The upper right point, 2 millimeters longer. The lower left point, slightly thicker. Microscopic details that only someone who had seen that birthmark 1,000 times would know. I showed her my drawing. She took the phone. She compared the drawing to her birthmark in the mirror, of her compact, perfect match. Even the detail of the longer upper right point, she whispered. How is this possible? I don't know, I responded, honestly. But there are too many coincidences. The scar, the dreams, the date, the birthmark, the names, everything. There's more, Sarah said suddenly. Things I never wrote in my notebook because they seemed too crazy. Tell me. In my dreams. I'm pregnant, she said softly. 4 months. No one knows except Daniel. It's his baby. We were planning to escape together to Montevideo after the war was over. My heart stopped. A boy, I whispered. We were going to have a boy. Did you know? She asked. I remembered, I corrected. Every time I hold dying Catherine in my dreams, I put my hand on her belly. I can feel the slight swelling. 4 months, not very visible yet, but it's there. Sarah started to cry again. We lost a baby 205 years ago, she sobbed. A baby who never got to be born. The historical document said you were pregnant, I reminded her. What happened to the baby? I don't know. Sarah wiped her tears. The document only said that Catherine was 4 months pregnant when she died. I searched on my phone again. Argentinian historical archives. Digging deeper. Digitized colonial medical records. And then I found it. A document dated October 15th, 1820. Record of emergency medical procedure. Deceased patient Catherine Marie Miller. Dr. Francis Hernandez performed a post-mortem C-section. Male infant extracted, alive, premature but healthy, delivered to paternal grandmother Mary Soledad Miller. I read the document aloud. Sarah gasped. The baby survived, she whispered. Our baby survived. He grew up with your grandmother, I continued reading, registered as Thomas Daniel Miller, 1820 to 1889. He had 5 children. His lineage continued until I searched Argentinian genealogical databases. Family tree of the Miller family of Buenos Aires. Thomas Daniel Miller married Ana Sofia Martinez in 1842. 5 children. Family line continued, generation after generation, until 1984, when Sarah Catherine Miller was born. You are his descendant, I said in awe. A direct descendant of the baby Catherine was carrying when she died. I carry his blood, Sarah whispered, and yours. The revelation hit us both simultaneously. She was literally the descendant of our child, who we never got to know in 1820. And now we had found each other again, 205 years later. Tell me about how we met, Sarah said softly. In that life, I closed my eyes. The memories flowed now like an overflowing river. Plaza de Mayo, April 14th, 1818. I was 23 years old, newly promoted to captain. I was walking through the plaza after a military ceremony. And I was 20, Sarah continued, her own memories emerging. Selling roses, pale pink dress, wicker basket full of flowers. I tripped over you. I smiled at the memory. Literally, I wasn't watching where I was going. I was reading a military dispatch. I bumped into you. Your basket fell, roses everywhere. You bent down to help me pick them up. She smiled too. Your aristocratic hands picking flowers off the muddy ground. Other officers scoffed, said it was servants' work. But your eyes, I whispered, when I looked at you while we were picking up the roses, your eyes captured me. Dark brown, deep, beautiful. You bought all the flowers from me, Sarah laughed softly. 30 roses. You paid 10 pesos, triple their value. They were worth every penny for an excuse to talk to you for 5 more minutes. You came back the next day, she continued. And the next, and the next. Each day buying flowers you didn't need, until I finally invited you for a walk, I said. April 23rd, 9 days after meeting you, we walked along the banks of the Rio de la Plata at sunset. You took my hand, Sarah whispered. It was the first time a man had taken my hand. My heart beat so fast I thought you would notice. I did notice, I confessed. because mine was beating just as fast. I kissed you 3 weeks later, she said, under a weeping willow near the port. It was the best kiss of 2 lifetimes, I replied. We opened our eyes simultaneously, looking at each other here, now, in 2025, 2 people who loved each other and died 205 years ago. Do you think this is real? Sarah asked in a small voice. I think it's the most real thing I've experienced in 48 years, I replied. We need more proof, I said, switching to rational mode. Scientific proof, complete historical documentation. How? Sarah asked. I know people, I said. I have resources, money, contacts. I grabbed my phone. I called Dr. Robert Sandoval, geneticist at the University of Buenos Aires. I had donated $2 million to his lab last year. He answered on the second ring. Ethan, what a surprise. Robert, I need a favor, urgent. Mitochondrial DNA analysis. Comparison with Argentinian genealogical databases from the 19th century. That's very specific. What are you looking for? To validate the lineage of a modern Buenos Aires woman with documented families from 1820. There was a pause. Does this have something to do with reincarnation? He asked cautiously. Yes, I replied honestly. It'll cost you $50,000 and 2 weeks. I'll transfer you $100,000. I want it in 1 week. Done. I hung up. I called my second contact, Professor Ashley Martinez, historian specializing in colonial Argentina, National University of La Plata. Professor Martinez, I need in-depth historical research. Captain Daniel Ethan Blackwood, executed October 1820, and Catherine Marie Miller, deceased October 1820. I want everything. Military documents, parish records, personal letters if they exist, court-martial testimonies. That will take time. The 19th century archives are not all digitized. I have time and money. How much? $80,000. 3 weeks. $120,000. 2 weeks. Agreed. I hung up and looked at Sarah. In 2 weeks we'll have answers, I said. Scientific and historical proof. She was looking at me with a strange expression. You just spent $220,000, she said slowly, to prove that you and I were in love 205 years ago. Yes, I replied simply. Why? I looked directly into her eyes. Because I've dreamt of you dying in my arms for 3 years, every night, without knowing who you were or why I couldn't forget you. And now you're here, alive, in front of me and with the same scars, the same eyes, the same soul. And I need to know if this is real. I need to know if I finally found you after 205 years of searching. Tears streamed down Sarah's cheeks. I found you, she whispered. You kept your promise. What do we do while we wait for the results? Sarah asked. We get to know each other, I replied. Again, in this life. I'm a cleaning lady with 2 extra jobs, she said bitterly. I live in an $800 studio apartment. I have 2 kids from different fathers who abandoned me. You're a multi-millionaire. This can't work. It worked in 1818, I said softly. When I was an aristocrat and you were a flower seller, we loved each other despite everything. And look how that ended, she replied. Both dead. You executed. Me with a sword in my chest. Our baby orphaned. But the baby survived, I pointed out, and his line continued, and it brought you back to me. What if we're destined to repeat the tragedy? Sarah asked. What if us finding each other always ends badly? Then, I said, taking her hand for the first time, maybe this time we can finally have the happy ending that was stolen from us 205 years ago. Her hand was small in mine, calloused from work, but warm, real, alive. A date, I stated. Give me a chance. A real date. Not as boss and employee, as Ethan and Sarah, as Daniel and Catherine, as 2 souls who have been searching for each other for 2 centuries. She hesitated, fear and hope battling in her expression. Finally, she nodded. A date, she agreed, but we're going Dutch. I chuckled. You're as stubborn as Catherine was. And you're as stubborn as Daniel." We smiled at each other, and for the first time in 3 years, the nightmares seemed less like a curse and more like a map that had finally guided me back to her. 2 weeks, I said. We'll have answers, proof, scientific and historical validation. And if the evidence confirms everything, Sarah asked softly. What does that mean? I looked into her eyes. Those eyes I had seen in 1,000 dreams. Those eyes that closed in my arms 205 years ago, under rain and blood. It means, I said slowly, that love truly transcends death, that promises matter even after centuries, and that some souls are destined to find each other again and again until they finally manage to be together. Sarah squeezed my hand. Then let's wait, she whispered. 2 weeks. And then we'll know if this is real or if we're both crazy. I think, I said, it might be both. She laughed, a genuine laugh, beautiful, full of life. And in that moment, I knew with absolute certainty. I had spent 205 years searching for her, and I had finally found her. 3 days after our conversation, Sarah called me at 3:47 a.m., her voice trembling, scared. I had the nightmare again, but this time I saw something new, something I've never seen before. What did you see? I asked, completely awake. Your arm, Daniel's left arm. It was wounded. A musket ball had gone right through your bicep. I can see the hole, blood soaking your blue sleeve. And there's something else. What? You have an old scar on your left forearm. Long. From when you were a kid. You fell off a horse when you were 8. The scar is shaped like a lightning bolt, about 2.5 inches long. My blood ran cold. Sarah, I said slowly, I have a scar on my left forearm. Since I was 8 years old, I fell off a horse on my grandfather's farm. Silence. What shape is it? She asked, her voice barely audible, shaped like a lightning bolt, 2.5 inches. I heard her ragged breathing on the other end of the line. This can't be real, she whispered. There's no way I could know that. I've never even seen your forearm. You always wear long-sleeved suits. I'll see you tomorrow, I said. I'll show you the scar, and we'll compare every detail of our nightmares. Side by side, leaving nothing out. Saturday, October 19th. I took her to dinner, not to a 5-star restaurant as I normally would. She insisted on a modest place, an Italian bistro in her neighborhood, where the dishes cost $20 instead of $200. She arrived in a simple floral dress, $20 from a thrift store, she confessed later. But she looked beautiful, hair down for the first time, light makeup, nervous smile. I wore jeans and a casual shirt, no $120,000 watch, no bespoke suit, just Ethan, not the CEO. We ate pasta. We drank cheap Chianti that tasted better than the $800 bottles in my cellar. We talked for 3 hours. She told me about her kids, Kevin, who's 9, and Lily, who's 6. Smart, good kids. Kevin's father abandoned them when he was 2. Lily's father never met her. Sarah worked 3 jobs to give them education and food. I never regret having them, she said fiercely. They're my life, my reason for getting up every day. Have you told them about me? I asked. What would I say? She laughed. Mum's dating a millionaire who thinks we were lovers 205 years ago, and he died in my arms after getting slashed by a sword? When you put it like that, it sounds crazy, I admitted. That's because it is crazy, she said, but she was smiling. After dinner, we walked through the park. It was October, fall in New England. Maples ablaze with color, red and gold leaves swirling in the breeze. It's beautiful, Sarah said, looking at the trees. Like you, I replied without thinking. She blushed, looked down. Don't say that. Why not? Because I'm 7 years older than you, emotionally, she said. I have 2 kids, wrinkles, stretch marks, calloused hands. You could have any woman, models, actresses, heiresses, but none of them are you, I said, stopping in front of her. None of them have been searching for me for 205 years. None of them died in my arms, promising to find me again. Tears filled her eyes. What if the scientific evidence says we're crazy? She whispered. What if all of this is just coincidence? Then, I said, taking her hand, we'll be two crazy people who love each other anyway. I love you, she said suddenly. I already love you. I know it's too soon. I know it's insane, but I feel like I've loved you for centuries. Because you have loved me for centuries, I replied. And I you. I kissed her. Our first kiss in this life, under the blazing maples, in a public park. Two souls finally recognizing each other, after 2 centuries apart. It tasted like fulfilled promises, like hope, like eternity. Monday, October 21st, 9:47 a.m. Email from Professor Eleanor Macmillan. Subject, Blackwood Miller Research, 1818. Urgent. Ethan, I found something extraordinary. We need to talk immediately. The documents I've uncovered go far beyond simple historical record. There are letters, testimonials, evidence that validates every detail of your consultation. But there's something more. Something that's kept me up since I found it yesterday. Attached is a scanned document from the court-martial of Captain Daniel Blackwood. Page 47. Testimony of Lieutenant Arthur Miller, eyewitness. Read it, then call me. Eleanor. I opened the attached PDF with trembling hands. Yellow document, 19th century handwriting, archaic English. Testimony of Lieutenant Arthur Miller before court-martial. October 16th, 1818. I, Arthur Miller, Lieutenant in the Continental Army, testify under oath as follows. On the night of October 14th, during an engagement with British forces in Lexington, I observed Captain Daniel Blackwood abandon formation. I shouted his name. He ignored direct orders to maintain position. I saw him running towards a civilian woman, trapped between British soldiers. 3 redcoat soldiers were attempting to assault the woman. Captain Blackwood killed 2 soldiers with his saber. The 3rd soldier fought him. The woman tried to rise from the ground. She slipped. The captain whirled towards her, his sword still in motion. The blade cut her across the chest. A deep, diagonal wound. Immediate and profuse bleeding. The captain dropped his weapon. He fell to his knees. He cradled the woman in his arms. He cried out her name repeatedly. Catherine! He pressed against the wound, trying to stop the bleeding. Useless. I heard the woman speak, her voice faint. I couldn't make out the exact words, but I watched as the captain sobbed and nodded. As she spoke, she touched his face, leaving blood on his cheek. Then she died. Captain Blackwood screamed her name for what felt like 30 seconds. Then he tried to take his own life. Using his own sword, myself and 2 other soldiers stopped him. He fought against us, screaming that he wanted to die with her. He was arrested and taken to military prison that same night. Additional information, subsequent investigation revealed that the deceased woman, Catherine Sarah Miller, was approximately 4 months pregnant. A military doctor performed a post-mortem cesarean section. A baby boy was extracted alive, premature but healthy. Captain Blackwood was informed of his son's birth while awaiting execution. He wrote a letter for the baby. The letter is attached to the court record as Exhibit C. I stopped breathing. There was a letter. Ethan had written a letter to his son before he died. I searched frantically through the PDF. 127 pages. Skipping documents, testimonials, military orders. Page 89, Exhibit C, letter from the condemned. Transcription of letter written by Captain Ethan Blackwood, October 16th, 1820. 2 days before his execution. To my son, I do not know your name. I do not know if you will even survive. But if you read this someday, you need to know the truth. Your mother's name was Catherine Sarah Miller. She was the most beautiful, intelligent, and courageous woman I have ever known. I loved her from the moment I saw her selling roses in Union Square 2 years ago. Our love was forbidden. I, an aristocrat. She, a flower girl. My family would never approve, but we loved each other anyway, in secret, in the shadows. Stealing moments when we could, when she told me she was pregnant with you, it was the best news of my life. We planned to escape to Boston after the war, start a new life together, away from my family, away from social expectations. But fate had other plans. On October 14th, I tried to save her from enemy soldiers. In the process, my own sword killed her. An accident, but my hands killed her nonetheless. Her last words were, "In another life. Promise me you'll find me," and I promised, "I swear to you on my soul, I will find you, in this life, or in 1,000 more. My son, if you survive, carry that oath with you, because I believe, with every fiber of my being, that promises transcend death. I will find your mother again, in another life, in another century, and when I do, we will fulfill the dream that was stolen from us in this life. In the meantime, be strong, be good. Honor your mother's memory by being the man she would have wanted you to be. And if you ever feel like you've met someone before, if you see a woman and your soul recognizes her for no logical reason, do not ignore it. Because true love knows no boundaries of time or space. I love you, son. I will never know. Your father, Captain Ethan Blackwood. October 16th, 1820. Tears streamed down my face as I read. Ethan had written this 205 years ago. For his son, he never knew. For Daniel Ethan Miller, who grew up and had 5 children, and whose family line eventually produced Sarah. Sarah, who carried this letter in her genetic inheritance, without knowing it. I called Sarah immediately. "I need to see you. Now. I've found something." Sarah arrived at my office 40 minutes later, still in her cleaning uniform from her morning shift at the hotel. "What did you find?" she asked breathlessly. I showed her the letter. I let her read it in silence. I watched her pale, tremble. Tears started falling before she finished the first paragraph. When she finished reading, she was sobbing. "He wrote this for our son," she whispered. "For Daniel, who survived, who grew up and had a family, and his blood runs through my veins. You are the living proof that the promise was fulfilled," I said softly. "Ethan swore to find Catherine again, and he did. Through you. You carry the blood of both of them. You are the descendant of their love. And now we're here," Sarah said, looking at me with tear-filled eyes. 205 years later, fulfilling the promise he made before he died. "In this life or in 1,000 more," I quoted his words from the letter. "He said 1,000 lives, but it only took 2. She laughed through her tears. "You were always dramatic, apparently." "In both lives," I agreed. My phone rang. "Dr. Robert Sullivan?" "Ethan, the results are in. You need to come to the lab. This is..." I have no words to describe what we found. "Good news?" I asked. "Impossible news," he replied. "That is somehow verifiable. Come today. Bring Ms. Miller." 2 hours later, we were in the genetics lab at Columbia University, 12th floor, an ultra-modern office with state-of-the-art DNA sequencing equipment. Dr. Sullivan greeted us with the expression of someone who had seen something that defied all his scientific training. "Sit down," he said. "This will take time to explain." "We took mitochondrial DNA samples from Sarah," Dr. Sullivan began, "and compared them with genealogical databases of American families from the 19th century. Specifically, we looked for matches with the Miller and Blackwood families of New York in the 1800s. "And?" I asked. "Sarah Catherine Miller is a direct matrilineal descendant of Elizabeth Miller, born 1764, died 1834, grandmother of Daniel Ethan Miller, born 1820. The baby," Sarah whispered, "the baby who survived the post-mortem cesarean." "Correct," confirmed Sullivan. "But there's more. We also analyzed samples from Ethan." "Did you find a connection to the Blackwood family?" I asked. "Yes. Ethan Blackwood is a direct patrilineal descendant of the Blackwood family. His Y-chromosomal DNA matches historical samples from the aristocratic New York family, specifically with samples from Charles Blackwood, older brother of Ethan Blackwood. My heart was pounding. So both of us, I said slowly, are descendants of the same families who loved each other in 1820. Statistically, said Sullivan, the probability of two people, descendants of specific New York families from 1820, meeting randomly in 2025 is approximately 1 in 847 million. But it wasn't random, Sarah said softly. It was destiny. Sandoval gave us a very strange look. There's something else, he said slowly. Something Professor Martinez discovered during her historical research. He produced a small, black velvet box. The Blackwood and Alvear family donated several artifacts to the National Historical Museum back in 1920, the centennial of several military executions from the independence era. One of the items donated was this. He opened the box. Inside, there was a military medal, aged bronze, with an inscription, Captain Daniel Ethan Blackwood, 1795-1820, for valor in service to the nation, the medal that Ethan wore when he died. The museum granted us temporary loan of it for this investigation, Sandoval explained, on the condition that we return it within 2 weeks. I touched the medal, my fingers trembling. Cold metal, heavy, real. This medal, I whispered. He wore it when he held Catherine, dying. There's her blood on this metal. Correctly observed, Sandoval confirmed. Forensic analysis detected microscopic traces of human blood in the grooves of the inscription. Too degraded for complete DNA analysis after 205 years, but the blood type is O positive. I'm O positive, Sarah stated quietly. If this story has moved you, if you believe that love can transcend centuries and that soulmates truly exist, if you want me to continue investigating and sharing real stories of reincarnation validated scientifically, please consider leaving a super thanks. Your support allows me to continue this work because what comes next is the final validation that skeptics won't be able to deny. Let me summarize the verifiable facts, Sandoval said, adjusting his glasses. 1. Sarah Miller is a direct descendant of the baby born post-mortem to Catherine Marie Miller in 1820. 2. Ethan Blackwood is a direct descendant of the family of Captain Daniel Blackwood, executed in 1820. 3. Both have identical nightmares of events from 1820 from before they even met. 4. Sarah has a congenital scar that matches exactly the documented wound that killed Catherine. 5. Physical details that Ethan describes from memory. Catherine's birthmark on her lower back, her moon, match Sarah's birthmarks that he's never seen. 6. Both were born on October 14th, the same day that Catherine died in 1820. 7. Historical documents validate every detail of their shared nightmares. 8. A letter written by Daniel before his execution promises to find Catherine in another life. 205 years later, their descendants meet. He paused. As a scientist, I should tell you that this is an elaborate coincidence, that reincarnation violates the laws of physics and biology. But, I asked, Sandoval continued, I've spent 30 years studying genetics. I've analyzed millions of DNA samples. I've seen patterns that science cannot completely explain. And this, he looked directly at us, this defies all rational explanation. The cumulative probability of all these coincidences occurring randomly is so astronomically low that it is effectively zero. So, what are you saying? Sarah asked. I'm saying, Sandoval responded carefully, that from a purely statistical perspective, the most probable explanation is that you two really are reincarnations of Daniel Blackwood and Catherine Miller, and that somehow, impossibly, you fulfilled a promise made 205 years ago. Absolute silence in the laboratory. A scientist had just validated the impossible. During the following 3 days, Professor Martinez continued, sending documents, parish records of the secret wedding between Daniel and Catherine, August 3rd, 1820, married in a small church outside of Philadelphia. Only 2 witnesses, against the orders of Daniel's family. Personal diary of Frederick Blackwood, Daniel's brother. Entry from October 18th, 1820. Today, they executed my younger brother for treason and desertion. He died for love of a woman that our family would never accept. Part of me hates him for dishonoring our name. Part of me envies him for having known a love so pure that it was worth dying for. Testimony of Martha Miller, Catherine's grandmother. October 20th, 1820. I took the baby of my dead granddaughter, called him Thomas Daniel, honoring both her and the man who tried to save her. I will raise this child to know that he was conceived in true love. Each document added another layer of validation. They weren't just cold records, they were real lives, real pain, real love. And now Sarah and I were living the epilogue of that story 205 years later. The final document that Professor Martinez sent arrived on October 28th, a complete family tree from 1820 to 2025. Thomas Daniel Miller, 1820-1889, married to Alice Sophia Carter, 1822-1891, Frederick Miller Carter, 1843-1902, married to Elizabeth Green, 1845-1908, Robert Miller Green, 1869-1934, married to Sarah White, 1872-1941, Daniel Miller White, 1895-1967, married to Mary Hill, 1899-1973, Thomas Miller Hill, 1924-1998, married to Alice Peterson, 1928-2002, Sarah Catherine Miller Peterson, 1984, present. I pointed to something extraordinary. Look at the names, I said. Thomas, Daniel, Sarah. They repeat. In every generation. Honoring their ancestors, Sarah whispered, without knowing the true story. And look at this. I pointed to another line. The Blackwood and Alvea family. Frederick Blackwood, 1793-1856, Daniel's brother. Married to Patricia Hayes, 1798-1869, Charles Blackwood Hayes, 1818-1879, married to Sophia Reed, 1821-1890, Ethan Blackwood Reed, 1847-1921, married to Laura Bell, 1852-1928, Daniel Blackwood Bell, 1879-1945, married to Elizabeth Ford, 1883-1961, Ethan Blackwood Ford, 1912-1987, married to Mary Cook, 1915-1995, Robert Blackwood Cook, 1947-2019, married to Alice Grant, 1952. Present, Ethan Blackwood, Grant, 1977 present. Ethan and Daniel, I observed, alternating in every generation, as if the names were a code, Sarah said, waiting for someone to decipher the pattern. And now we have, I finished. She took my hand. 2 family lines, she said softly, separated for 205 years, running parallel through generations until they finally converged again in us. The baby who survived, I said, was the bridge. Your ancestor Thomas. He carried the blood of both of them, of Catherine and Daniel, and that blood flowed through 8 generations to you. While your line, Sarah continued, descended from Daniel's brother, Frederick, carrying the Blackwood name, through the centuries, to you. And on October 14th, 2025, I said, 205 years after Daniel and Catherine died, their descendants met, by accident, in an office building. It wasn't an accident, Sarah whispered. It was the promise, being fulfilled. I kissed her, deeply, desperately, with 205 years of longing, and in that moment I knew with absolute certainty, promises do transcend death, love does conquer time, and some souls are destined to find each other again and again, until they finally manage to stay together. A week later, Sarah invited me to meet her children. Her 800-month studio apartment was small, 2 bedrooms, second-hand furniture, but it was clean, filled with love. Photos of Matthew and Lucy on the walls, Children's drawings on the refrigerator. Matthew was 9 years old, serious for his age. His eyes were distrustful when he saw me, protective of his mother. "You're the rich guy Mom talks about," he said bluntly. "Matthew?" Sarah scolded him gently. "It's okay," I said. "Yes, I have money, but that's not what's important. What's important is that I love your mother." "You love her?" Matthew asked. "My dad said he loved her. Then he left us." The pain in his voice broke my heart. I knelt down to be at his level. "Your father was a fool," I said honestly. "Your mother is the most extraordinary woman I've ever met, and you and your sister are lucky to have her. I'm the lucky one that she's giving me a chance." Matthew studied me with eyes too old for his age. "Do you promise not to hurt her?" "I promise you," I responded. "On my soul, for all the lives I'll live, I will never hurt your mother." 6-year-old Lucy was easier. She came up shyly and showed me her doll. "Her name is Catherine," she said. "It's my favorite name." Sarah gasped. "Why do you like that name?" I asked gently. "I don't know." Lucy shrugged. "I just like it. Mom says it's a special name." I looked at Sarah, tears in her eyes. Even the children felt the echo of past lives. After dinner, simple pizza we shared on the living room floor because there wasn't a big enough table. Matthew showed me something. "Mom told me about the story," he said, "about the soldier and the woman who died a long time ago." "What do you think about that?" I asked. "I think it's sad," he said honestly, "but also beautiful that they loved each other so much." "Very beautiful," I agreed. "I found something," he said suddenly, "in Grandma's stuff. When she died last year, Mom let me keep a box of old family keepsakes." He ran to his bedroom. He came back with a rusted metal box. "There are letters here," he said, "very old. One has the name Daniel." My heart stopped. Sarah came over quickly. Matthew pulled out a yellowed envelope, paper almost disintegrated. 19th century handwriting. "For Daniel Miller, upon his majority, from his grandmother, Mary Soledad Miller, written 1838. We opened the envelope with extreme care. Inside, a letter. "My dearest Daniel, today you turn 18 years old. You are a man now, and you deserve to know the complete truth of your birth. Your mother, Catherine, was my granddaughter, the most beautiful and kind woman I knew. She fell in love with a soldier, Ethan Blackwood, a noble man from a good family, but their love was forbidden. When they discovered she was pregnant with you, they planned to escape, but the war separated them. Enemy soldiers attacked. Ethan tried to save her. He accidentally injured her with her own sword. She died in his arms, but you survived. The doctor took you from her womb as she lay dead, a miracle of God. Ethan was executed 3 days later for treason, for love. Before dying, he sent me a message. He asked that I raise you knowing this: true love never dies. It transcends death. He promised to find your mother again in another life. Daniel, you are living proof of that love. You carry the blood of both of them, and someday, generations from now, their souls will meet again and fulfill the destiny that was stolen from them. Honor their memory. Live with the same love that they shared. Your loving grandmother, Mary Soledad Miller, 1838. Total silence in the small apartment. "They knew," Sarah whispered. "Since 1838, they knew we would come back." "Grandma knew," I agreed, "and she kept the secret in this letter, hoping that someday someone would understand." Matthew looked at us with enormous eyes. "So it's real," he said with awe. "You really are them, Ethan and Catherine, back again." "Yes," I said simply. "We are them." The next 2 months were about adjusting. I offered Sarah money. She refused. "I'm not your charity case," she said fiercely. "It's not charity," I argued. "It's love. Let me help you." "Help me by being my partner," she replied, "not my benefactor." We reached a compromise. She quit 2 of her 3 jobs, keeping only the morning cleaning job because she liked the independence. I paid for Matthew and Lucy's private education. She insisted on paying rent and food with her own money, proud, stubborn, independent, just as Catherine had been. My mother came to visit me in November, elegant, rich, expecting me to be dating some heiress. "She's a cleaning lady," she said with disdain when I told her about Sarah. "With 2 kids, 7 years older than you. What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking," I replied calmly, "that I love her, that I've waited 205 years to find her again, and that your approval would be nice, but not necessary." My mother blinked. I had never stood up to her like that before. 205 years, she repeated. "What are you talking about?" I told her the whole story. The nightmares, the scar, the historical documents, the DNA analysis, Daniel's letter. Everything. When I finished, my mother was crying. "Your great-grandfather, 4 generations back," she said softly, "was named Ethan Blackwood Torres. He died in 1945, but before he died, my grandmother told me, he said he carried the name in honor of an ancestor who died for true love. Ethan Alexander Blackwood and Alvear," I whispered. 1820. "The story passed down through generations," my mother continued. "We always thought it was just a family legend, the noble soldier who died saving his beloved. But you have proof, scientific proof," I confirmed, "historical, genetic." My mother looked at me with new eyes. "So she's not just a cleaning lady," she said slowly. "She's the woman your ancestor died for, the woman whose son carried our family line forward indirectly, the woman you've been searching for centuries." "Yes," I said simply. "Then," my mother took a deep breath, "you better introduce me to her properly, and to my grandchildren." I cried. My mother accepted Sarah, not for her money or status, but because she finally understood that some things transcend social class, like the love that crosses death itself. If you've made it this far in this story, if your heart has been touched, if you now believe that true love can conquer even death, consider leaving a super thanks. Your support allows me to continue investigating these impossible stories that challenge everything we think we know about love, destiny, and the soul. Because what comes next is the moment Daniel and Catherine waited 205 years for. October 14th, 2026, exactly 1 year after I saw Sarah's scar for the first time. 206 years after Catherine died in Daniel's arms. I took her to New York City, private jet, 5-star hotel. She protested the expense. I insisted. "It's our anniversary," I said. "Both anniversaries, death and rebirth." We walked through Central Park at sunset, the same place where Daniel had held Catherine dying in the rain in 1820. Now there were tourists, squirrels, street performers. Life. I found the exact spot. I knew it without a map. My body remembered. "Here," I said, "this is where you died." Sarah looked around, tears in her eyes. "I can feel it," she whispered. "I can feel the echo. The rain, the blood, your voice shouting my name." "But you're not dying today," I said. "Today you're alive, beautiful, with me." I took a velvet box from my pocket. Sarah gasped. "Ethan." I knelt down, in the same spot where Daniel had knelt holding Catherine as she died. But this time, there was no blood, only love. "Sarah Catherine Miller," I said, my voice breaking. 206 years ago, I made a promise. I swore on my soul that I would find you. In this life or in 1,000 more, it only took 2 lifetimes. But I found you, and now I want to fulfill the dream that was stolen from us in 1820. I opened the box. Diamond ring. Simple. Beautiful. 3 carats. "Marry me," I said. "Not as Ethan and Sarah, but as Daniel and Catherine, as the souls we've been for centuries. Marry me, and we'll finally have the happy ending we deserved 206 years ago." Sarah was crying, sobbing, hand over her mouth. "Yes," she said through tears. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times, yes." I put the ring on her finger, but we kissed in Central Park, in the exact spot where we had died. But now, we were alive, and finally, together. We got married 3 months later, January 14th, 2027. Small ceremony, intimate, only close family and friends. But we did something special. We visited the National Archives in Washington, D.C. We requested special permission, and we placed a note in the file of Daniel Blackwood and Catherine Miller. Promise fulfilled. We found each other again. Ethan Blackwood and Sarah Miller, 2027. Love transcends death. We sealed the note, and they officially filed it with the 1820 documents. Future generations would find that note, and they would know that real love never dies. The ceremony was beautiful. Sarah wore a simple white dress, like Catherine would have worn. I wore a dark blue suit, like the uniform Daniel wore. Matthew and Lily were our ring bearers, proud, happy. My mother cried during the entire ceremony. When the minister said, "You may kiss the bride," I kissed Sarah deeply, and in that moment, I felt something, a presence, warm, loving, as if Daniel and Catherine were watching us from somewhere beyond time, smiling, knowing that we had finally achieved what they could not. A year after the wedding, in October of 2028, Sarah gave me "I'm pregnant." My heart stopped. "What?" "3 months," she said, smiling through tears. "It's a boy." I sat down, stunned, overwhelmed. "Catherine was 4 months pregnant when she died," I whispered. "With a boy, Thomas." "I know." Sarah put my hand on her belly. "And now, 208 years later, we'll have the son that was stolen from us." "What will we name him?" I asked. "Thomas Daniel," she answered without hesitating. "Honoring the child who survived, the child who carried our love forward through generations, the child who made it possible for us to find each other again." I cried. I embraced Sarah. I felt the little life growing in her womb. The circle was complete. Daniel and Catherine loved each other in 1818. They had a child conceived in love. They died tragically in 1820, but their son survived. 208 years later, their descendants reunited. They recognized each other. They loved each other. And now we would have the son that destiny owed us. If you've listened to this story until the end, now you know something that most people will never understand. Real love has no limits. It knows no time. It knows no space. It knows no death. Souls that are destined to be together will find a way. In this life, in the next, in 1,000 lifetimes if necessary. Promises made with the soul are never broken. They may take centuries to fulfill, but they are fulfilled. And the scars we carry, physically and emotionally, are not accidents. They are maps, guiding us back to the people we lost, back to the loves we left behind, back home. When I saw the scar on Sarah's chest, I didn't just recognize it. No, I remembered making it with my own sword 206 years ago, and that scar guided me back to her, through centuries, through lifetimes, through death itself. Because some promises are eternal, and some loves never end. They just wait, patiently, across the ages, until the souls finally reunite. And when they do, it's as if they were never apart. This is our story, of Daniel and Catherine, of Ethan and Sarah, of two souls who loved each other so much that not even 206 years of separation could break their bond. And now, finally, we are together forever in this life and in all the lives to come, because when you promise to find someone again, with your whole soul, the universe listens, and even if it takes centuries, the promise is fulfilled always.